For the Atlanta Falcons in 2023, well, they decided to put all their eggs into the Desmond Ridder basket. Pretty much why is that? Well, to recap, they drafted Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round of the 2022 NFL draft, but they only played him sparingly behind the starter veteran Marcus Mariota until the final 4 games of the 2022 campaign, where the Falcons were pretty much out of contention for the playoffs and, well, essentially the very weak NFC South. So they decided, you know what, we're going to play Desmond Ridder for these final 4 games, see what we can get out of them for next season, 2023. So that was why they decided to play him out. So Desmond Ridder got a full offseason's work in as a starting quarterback. But in terms of what they did prior to this past season, they did do a few things to go and get help for their quarterbacks, such as drafting standout college running back Bijan Robinson from Texas, and gain some insurance in case of an emergency in the form of Commanders quarterback Taylor Heinicke. So for Atlanta, there was a golden opportunity there to go and grab the NFC South this past season, especially considering there were other quarterback questions around the division from the Panthers, the Saints, the Bucks, even with their own quarterback questions with Desmond Ridder. But nonetheless, there was an opportunity there for Atlanta to go and grab the division in 2023. So in terms of what went right for this team this past season, you look at that defense. The defense needed upgrades last year after they got repeatedly burned, and that's actually 2 years of getting burned. And they were lacking still in a lot of key areas, especially in the pass rush. I feel like the secondary is where they were really benefited from last offseason. And one of those big signings that they had in last offseason was Bengals safety Jesse Bates, who was pretty much flying all over the field. And he was precise with over 80 tackles in the middle of the field and pretty much actually all over the field. And he led the team with 6 interceptions. So that signing of Jesse Bates to a kind of a big deal. So it paid off. It paid off for the Atlanta Falcons in the secondary. And when you look at the offensive side of the ball, Bijan Robinson with the 8th overall pick, he had a very solid rookie season. Even though many, including myself, questioned Atlanta's decision to use the 8th overall pick to draft him when they already had Tyler Algier, who broke out last year as a rookie, and Cordell Patterson, the veteran, who still is kind of effective for Atlanta, when, those 2 running backs were already on the team. However, despite some oddities by his head coach, he made the most of his playing time with his explosiveness, his versatility, flexibility in both the rushing and receiving game. So it was a very solid season for the Texas Tech running back. But unfortunately, all of that was kind of undone by some oddities at the quarterback position. And, all those expectations set a little too high, I guess, by all of us. Maybe I set a little too high expectations for the quarterback myself. And, that ended up coming to fruition. Desmond Ridder pretty much disappointed for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Desmond Ridder didn't start out too bad in the first 2 games when they started 2-0. But, man, starting from that game against the Lions in Week 3 going forward, it was going to start teetering on an alarming inconsistency. It wasn't a good sign for the Falcons when Ridder flipped between throwing good passes against some teams and then committing direct turnovers to other defenses, like throwing passes to directly to a safety, a linebacker, a corner, directly in their face, as well as allowing himself to hold onto the ball for too long to get sacked. So not a good sign for a quarterback in his first full season. And then Ridder was also lacking that ruthless aggression that good old Vinnie McMahon coined in the early 2000s of the WWE. Because, with Desmond Ridder, sure, he throws the deep passes at times, but it was very rare. He was a mostly very conservative quarterback that very rarely threw the deep ball, compared to Taylor Heinicke, who had to step in at times. Desmond Ridder did get benched at one point. He also got injured at one point. So compared to Taylor Heinicke, in his days with Washington, he rotated the starting duties with him in the back half of the season. But unfortunately for Heineke, he only made things slightly better. But then when you get to the second problem with this offense, there's only so much you can do. So let's talk about the second problem with this offense. There's a lot of questionable usage with this team, especially when you consider the top weapons of this offense. Kyle Pitts, the tight end, Drake London, their top receiver, and then, like I said, with Bijan Robinson at running back. Arthur Smith really did some questionable things. I mean, not in that way. He really didn't use them very well this season because he preferred to use the likes of Jonnu Smith over Kyle Pitts, the tight end. And then there were times where Desmond Ridder preferred to go with Mac Hollins over his top receiver, Drake London. And then, not to say that Tyler Algier was bad, because he actually did very solid throughout the year. It's just that Bijan Robinson's actually did a little bit better than Tyler Algier. And this is repeated times. Yet, when you put all those three in, I mean, not saying Tyler Algier was bad. It's just the offense overall was just very lacking. They couldn't do jack a lot of the times. So that's why the defense had to carry the load for the most part. And even that faltered at times. So it was pretty much more of the same stuff that we've seen in the last few years for the Atlanta Falcons. A staggering offense with a defense that has to carry the load way too much, and it eventually falters as well. And what do you get? The 7-10 record. The same 7-10 record that the Falcons have had for the last 2 years. So when you look at it for Atlanta, it was basically a rerun of the 2022 season for them. Same 7-10 record, same 8th overall draft pick, and same questions about what do you do at the quarterback position if you're Arthur Blank, the owner, and Terry Fontenot if you're the general manager. Well, when you look in terms of this season of the Atlanta Falcons, you just replace Marcus Mariota with Desmond Ridder at the starting quarterback spot, and then you replace Desmond Ridder with Taylor Heineke in the backup spot. Same shit. Now, they did fire Arthur Smith at head coach, rightfully so, and they replaced him with Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris. They did initially consider Bill Belichick during the hiring process. That could have been an interesting dynamic, ironically, all that 28-3 stuff, and then you go on to hire the same head coach that embarrassed you in the Super Bowl with a humiliating comeback. But nonetheless, the Falcons now have to figure out what they're going to do at the game's most important position with a defensive coach. So looking at their offseason that's coming up, the Falcons have around $41 million to spend, which is it's a solid amount of money to go. And looking at their first round pick, same as the last year, 8th overall. Now for the Falcons, at least for them, they don't have to worry too much in terms of their pending free agents. The only one I would consider re-signing is Calais Campbell at edge rusher. Other than that, Jeff Okudah at corner and running back Cordell Patterson, I wouldn't worry so much about that. Now, in terms of their team needs that they need to address, you have to really consider the quarterback position as number one. Now, there have been heavy discussions about, which one do they get? Do they go trade for the likes of Justin Fields? Do they sign Kirk Cousins at free agent? Do they go and draft a quarterback at number 8, or do they trade up to go and get one of the top prospects in college? Well, either way, the Falcons have to go and get a whatever quarterback is best available for them. And once they address their quarterback position and the best available one that's out there, you gotta go address some help around that quarterback. Go and get some help for Drake London, because the Falcons are really lacking in the receiving game behind him and Kyle Pitts. This has been an ongoing issue for the last 2 years. So the Falcons really need to get some help aplenty in the passing game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you need to sign and draft 2 edge rushers. Calais Campbell, big help in the very weak Atlanta defensive front. But they got to decide if they want to re-sign him. So use free agency and the draft to go and get 2 edge rushers, whether it's by re-signing Calais Campbell at one spot and then drafting another one, or getting 2 in free agency and the draft. So for the Falcons, they had a golden opportunity to win a very weak division in 2023, but they blew it all away because Desmond Ridder disappointed, whether by fault or not, and his head coach did him and his offense no favors whatsoever, and that got him fired. Now it's up to Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot to grab a long-term quarterback and refill at key spots if they want to go and get Atlanta back where Arthur Smith wants them. And that is winning in the Dirty South.